curiosity ride.
Matrix webcast,
Where the human spirit flies. Matrix webcast, where the human spirit flies.
Hey, welcome to the Medbix webcast. This is Raman Anamaraju. I'm the host. So actually we have a very wonderful, dear to my heart, is a podcast today. This is a bringing Silicon Valley in the front lines, the history of Silicon Valley to the front lines. Okay, it's going to be fascinating thing to learn from our guest today. Before I bring my guest, let me introduce you my co-host, beautiful, blonde, brainy, all, and she saves lives. That's the most important one. So let me introduce you, Dr. Susan Davis. Welcome. So
Hello, Romana. Good evening.
good evening. So you're all intact. Your pickup van, your cattle, your house. They're all in the same place, right? It's not washed out from the hurricanes.
No, we're hanging tight. We're good. No problems down here just yet. It's early, so yes, no problems in South Florida.
I told everybody, anybody you see a red pickup truck with the beer bottles, call her.
I'm not sure you even understand the definition of a redneck, Romana from Silicon Valley. I got to be honest.
Okay. Anyway, we have a wonderful guest, Susan.
Yes.
He's a friend. I met him. One thing, he's a very low profile in Silicon Valley. He doesn't make noises. He talks less, and also very historical. He brings the history in the front, and then more important, what I like about him, he loves actual subjects. He loves curiosity. He likes physics. He was trained in a different areas, but like a multidisciplinary field. Like me, he likes that multidisciplinary understanding. That's why he became a good friend. Let me introduce first my friend, the Daniel. You need a special introduction for that. Good evening, guys, everyone, and welcome to the Medbix webcast. Every once in a generation, history gives us the opportunity to hear from someone who was not reading about history. They were living it. Tonight guest is one of them, one of those rare individuals. Daniel Kottke was not merely a present at Apple's birth. He had a front row seat to one of the history's greatest innovation stories. Long before Steve Jobs became a global icon, Daniel Kottke knew the young visionary searching for purposes, beauty, and excellence. Together, they studied at Reed College. Oh my God, Reed College is my favorite college. And more I read about it, I love it. Traveled across India. They went to India together, Susan, in search of a deeper meaning for 4 months, and returned with experiences that would profoundly influence the culture and the philosophy behind the Apple. As one of the Apple's earliest employees and a member of the original Macintosh team, Daniel helped build not only revolutionary computers, but also witnessed firsthand how curiosity, technology, design, and even spirituality converged into create a company that transformed the world. Transformed the world, Susan. Tonight, we have the privilege of hearing the stories behind the legend from someone who was there before the keynote stages, before the headlines, and before history was written. Please join me in welcoming true Silicon Valley pioneer and eyewitness to innovation and our special guest, good friend for this evening, Daniel Kottke. Welcome, Daniel. Did I make introduction less? I hope I cannot do more than that. I try to do more than that. You deserve more than that, actually, introduction.
Looking forward to discussing actual subjects with you, Ramana.
Actual subjects. Yeah, right? I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
he wants to go real subjects into the Daniel, before I go into the jump into the real subjects, let me ask you: you went to the Reed College. You know, Macintosh and Reed colleges are very connected. The cursive writing, the fonts that he was taught in the Reed's College, and he told me a story that is very fascinating to me because I see today you see the cursive. PowerPoints or anything like that. Cursive things came at fonts, came from Reed College. This is the birth of Reed College. Can you explain that a little bit when you went to school with Steve Jobs and you together in a Reed College?
Actually, I'm the person who took calligraphy in my first semester. Reed was quite famous for calligraphy at the time,
Okay.
and I really enjoyed it. And I'm the one who told Steve he should take the class. Um, and one of the things about the calligraphy class at Reed is you had to actually produce a book that you wrote by hand.
Oh,
And
really?
I don't know if Steve ever did. He was just an auditor, so I don't know. I never saw any of his calligraphy. I don't know that he actually did a project, but I
Because he
wrote
took a
out.
class because of you, right? You took a
Yeah,
class.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what
And,
is
Uh,
and you
calligraphy
you were
class
a
is like?
lefty, right? I understand
Oh,
you're a lefty, so your calligraphy was maybe not all that in a bag of chips.
I, uh,
okay.
it was a bit of a crisis because you cannot push a calligraphy nib. You have to pull it, just like
Ah,
a quill pen, right?
yeah.
You have to pull it, and so people either turn the page this way.
Oh,
It's too complicated to show you.
how do you know
You
that?
turn the page one way or the other. And I said,
But
that's ridiculous. And I just started doing it with my right hand. And
oh my God.
it turned out it worked out. Because when you're doing calligraphy, you're not writing really fast, you know.
No.
Um,
You're in
so
the Reed College with him. You're in the Reed College with Steve Jobs. Both of you taking same classes or different classes you're taking?
I was
You know,
never in the same class with him.
okay.
Uh,
Calligraphy you took after you took it. You took first, right? Calligraphy class.
yes. I don't really know what other classes Steve took, except that he said he liked his Shakespeare class the best.
Yeah, yeah. You
And
were,
I didn't have a Shakespeare class. I would have been interested, but
yeah. So let me ask you. You finished your school there, and then you moved back to. You left Steve Jobs and Reed College. Reed College is I love it because I used to work in Oklahoma University of Oklahoma Norman, and then there is only two or three universities have a nuclear reactors. I was shocked to know that Reed College has a nuclear reactor. That is a research reactor. I used to work under the nuclear reactor in Oklahoma, so I remember that. I loved it. After that, I started liking Reed College. But anyway, what you did after that, after you finished a degree in Reed College, you went back to your hometown, New York.
uh, well, no. Steve and I went to India in 1974 for
Oh,
four
tell me that,
months,
Rafe. Yeah,
and I stayed another month after he left. I took
really?
a month long Vipassana retreat in Dalhousie, Vipassana mindfulness meditation, which was really the main value of the trip for me.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, anyway, and then I came back. Steve went back to work at Atari. He was working at Atari on video games. But now we're talking 1975. Well, that's when the personal computer, the Altair,
Before
was
before you go
announced.
into that, let me ask you a question on the India trip. What did you learn in India? It was India is under poverty, a lot of poverty you see in first hand. India is a spiritual place, spiritual home for a lot of people. It is a very different world than now. What did you see in India when you went there? What you and Steve really understood about India?
I would say the most shocking thing was well, so we were in Delhi. We took a bus to Haldwani. We went to Nainital. On our way to Kenchi, to Neem Karoli's ashram, and we arrived in Nainital. And the moment we get off the bus, there's this huge crowd of beggars, and including lepers, people missing fingers, which is kind of a shock. You don't see that in this country.
Yeah.
But the thing, if I reflect back, you don't see beggars who have a smiling face in this country. In India, it's not. It's not. You can have. What am I trying to say? India has a rich spiritual culture that lets you have dignity as a human being, even though you're a beggar. That's what.
That's so wonderful. I mean, 1974. Just such a cool experience. I think that you were two very different people with two different takes. It seems like the India trip really did settle in with you maybe for the rest of your time. I can't see how it wouldn't. Were there other travelers in 74 from around the world, your age group, showing up doing the hippie trail, or were you unusual? It seemed like at the time.
Theoretically, there were lots of travelers. I didn't really, well, when I got there, Steve arrived a week or two before me. I wasn't going to skip out on my final exams that year at Reed. And
good move.
So Steve and I were supposed to meet at this hotel, and I get there and he's not there. And all I could do was just wait. There was no cell phone. There was no way to contact him. But as I learned, the American Express office in New Delhi is where everybody went every day to get the letters or the money that someone was supposed to send them, right? It's a very common scenario. So you could just go to the American Express office and meet lots of people. After about 4 days, I did just run into Steve downtown. He had found a cheaper hotel. Like the hotel he found in Paharganj, which is the old bazaar section of New Delhi, that place was like $1 a night versus $10 a night. $10 a night seemed cheap to me, but anyway, the story was we went to Kenchi in Uttar Pradesh, north of Delhi, which was the ashram of Neem Karoli Baba. And we get there, and this was where the book Be Here Now was inspired. And there had been hundreds of Westerners in that area. And we get there, and it's completely deserted of Westerners. And so that was a big surprise.
Was it because he passed?
Yeah, because Neem Karoli,
right?
He had passed away in November, 6 months earlier. And the wealthy Indians who were really sustaining that temple, they didn't want all these hippies just hanging out. And Neem Karoli liked the hippies, I guess. I don't know.
I read an interesting, I don't know if you heard this or you probably do because of the name Apple and all, but I did hear that the Beatles had traveled there as well, but it was in 1968. Does that sound like something?
I don't know the status of the Neem Karoli temple in Kenchi. The Beatles went to Rishikesh, which is where the Maharishi Mahashogi. And Maharishi Mahashogi, he was the one giving out personal mantras. He would give you a secret mantra, and if you chant the mantra all day, every day, you'll become enlightened.
That's so cool.
I think John in particular was not so keen on the mantra idea.
I love it.
both Paul and John wrote songs while they were in Rishikesh.
Interesting. Yeah. Richard, what is that? Harrison. Harrison is very popular. He was doing a lot of Indian stuff. But let me ask you. You told me last encounter with me in the on podcast. One thing is profoundly stuck with me, Danielle. One thing he said that Steve Jobs told you during the travel in India. He saw the poverty and he said that, you know what? He didn't say you want to elevate poverty. He said that technology will change. Technology is going to be the factor that will change this world. That's what he said to you. Tell me about that. That's a very powerful visionary. It took me, on my quantum physics to the next level.
Well, my friendship with Steve was about all these books that we found. There was the Be Here Now book. That's what got us started. And then there was autobiography of a yogi. There was
Yeah.
Ramakrishna and his disciples. I had never been exposed to all this material. Lama Govinda wrote books like Way of the White Clouds. And then there was Chogyam Trungpa. There was Alan Watts, who introduced Zen to the Western audience. Anyway, so I didn't have high expectations. Steve wanted to find the guru who was going to tap him on the head, and white light was going to appear, and enlightened. And I mean, it's a little ironic that one of the books that Steve and I both liked was called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by Chogyam Trungpa. Pretty famous book. And it's a little ironic that Steve actually was kind of materialistic in his pursuit of enlightenment. But anyway, you asked about other seekers on the way. Well, Steve and I were traveling around, going to temples. We went up to the Kulu Valley. We went to Manali, which was a Tibetan refugee camp. And it was filled with Tibetans. And why did I bring that up? Oh, because Steve and I decided to hitchhike to Tibet. We thought that was an adventure. Not really a good idea. We knew they wouldn't let us into Tibet because it was red. But we spent a day hitchhiking the gravel trucks, the road trucks up to the Rotang Pass. Anyway, we get back to the hotel and our rooms had been broken into and they stole my sleeping bag, which is where I had hidden all my traveler's checks. So I lost all my money. And so then we had to go back to Delhi, and it took weeks to get my traveler's checks refunded through the bank in New Delhi. And so now I had no money at all. And Steve had money. So he was generous. And that's when we hooked up with two British guys who were also on a spiritual path. And the four of us shared an 8x10 tiny room. Those two British guys were completely penniless. And the deal was they got to stay there in exchange for cleaning the toilets every day. The toilets of the hotel. And Steve and I were paying $1 a day to sleep in their room with them. And so the four of us had a pretty good time for, I don't know, 10 days or 2 weeks. It was too hot to walk. This is now like July, the hottest time of the summer.
Are you in touch with them? Are you in touch with them still?
No, Graham French was the one guy who was most sociable, and I tried to find him years ago, and I thought I found him in Australia. We corresponded for a few years.
Okay.
But then once it was the internet, I just never could get a reply from him. I don't even know who his guru was. I don't know what his meditation. Steve and I did not have a meditation practice per se. We had all these books that we were reading. Neem Karoli Baba, the Maharaji, of Be Here Now, it wasn't so much a meditation practice. What Maharaji always said was love, serve, remember. Love everyone, serve everyone, and remember your essence. That was his policy.
You know what? What a wonderful transition to like 2026. How do you feeling about that statement right there, and then what you're doing today, and what we're looking at today? I wish it stood true. It does for some. What do you think?
Well, the question of what I think about the world today is
I know that's a bit loaded. No, that's a bit loaded, but
topic. And, I'll just say, I haven't written my memoir yet. And I'm actually ready I'm going to write it soon.
good.
People want to hear my recollections of our trip to India, but really not that much happened in India. We traveled around. We didn't meet any famous guru who tapped us on the head.
But the seeds were planted.
Well, yes. Well, the seeds were planted by all the books we read.
Okay.
If you Google Steve Jobs Spiritual Library, you'll find a page with 100 books on my Steve Jobs bookshelf of books that Steve and I thought were interesting that we had
Cool.
read. And so the question is, what I realized years ago is, if I'm going to tell the story of my trip to India and the two young men in search of enlightenment, that's the theme. It's a good theme. Then I realized I couldn't end that memoir without saying what I think now about the world. And I have to say, well, it's like, what is the definition of enlightenment that we want to use now? That's a complicated topic. Mm-hmm. I have some ideas now, but the first thing I came to the conclusion is, like, if you can read all these, India has such a rich spiritual tradition of gurus going back hundreds, thousands of years. I really liked Milarepa. Remember Milarepa?
Yeah.
Like in the Middle Ages? All these adepts, meditators who could do miracles, different types of miracles. Steve and I were kind of junior scientists thinking, okay, what's real here? Like what is actually happening? Well, there's lots and lots of books about Kundalini. That's kind of real. But there's also a whole theme throughout the spiritual literature of like this, the council of the elders that are looking over life on earth and taking care of us, right? You find that idea in many spiritual traditions. And personally, I don't think so. I don't think there's anybody looking down on planet Earth like thinking these people need help, because we do need help. It's like, I don't know. Earth is a difficult place to be for the majority of human beings.
You came back to United States, then you went to Columbia. You finished your school, right? And you didn't come to Silicon Valley. Tell us a little bit about the education that you went through, and you became a lawyer. Just give me that brief educational background of yours.
Well, what I really liked about Columbia, let me say, what I really liked about Reed was it was a pastoral campus, beautiful buildings, and Reed had a very high academic standards for literature. So the reading lists were huge.
Yeah.
And people were under a lot of academic pressure. That was all okay. But the classes were small. And because it was a relatively small college, you didn't have let me just say, I got to Columbia and the course offering was as thick as a phone book. Every single semester.
Wow.
Because it's a combination of all the graduate schools at Columbia plus Barnard College right across the street. And I especially liked, I took a course on Vedanta at Barnard College.
I didn't
reading the Vedas and the Upanishads. I couldn't do that at Reed. and I got into reading all the Christian mystics from the Middle Ages. And so I really liked that part of my education. And then I had a dual major of literature and music.
So how did you end up in Silicon Valley?
Well, because I stayed in touch with Steve.
Yeah.
I used to write him letters with quotes of all the stuff I was reading, and he would send me. He wasn't much of a letter writer, but he sent me postcards with quotes that he liked.
Yeah.
And at the same time that I was at Columbia, Steve was going to the Zendo in Los Altos. There was a Zendo that he could ride his bike to near Cupertino. And so he liked Zen meditation. And so anyway, summer of 75, that was a year after our India trip, I came back to California and visited Steve, and we visited the Zendo, and we drove up to Oregon to the All One Farm commune. And we were harvesting apples. And
Daddy, I was telling Susan about that year. She said that where they got the name for apple. They were working in apple farm.
well, there's a thing called the mucusless diet healing system and the fruitarian diet. And Steve and I thought that was very interesting. I was, Steve was funny. He was very interested in diet, more than me, but we both became vegetarians while we were at Reed College. And the mucusless diet healing system, Steve just thought that was fascinating, about just a fruitarian diet to purify yourself. What we know now is that it's not really a good diet. Eating sugar is like your blood sugar is just up and down. That's not really good. But we were fasting on apples while we harvested apples in the summer of 75. Anyway, and so then by the summer of 76, Steve Wozniak had designed this Apple computer. It wasn't called the Apple, it was just a hobby computer. And Steve Jobs is the one who said, we are going to sell this, make money. So sometime in the spring, I must have called Steve up to see how he was doing. And he said he was doing a computer project. And I said, oh, do you need help? He said, yes. So summer of 76, I came out for the summer and was building Apple Ones in the garage. I didn't know how. I didn't know. But I'm
birth of an apple.
Say what?
Birth of an apple. Tell me, how did it happen?
Well, Steve liked the name Apple because it came ahead of Atari, where he was working in the phone booth, in the phone book.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. A lot of our listeners don't even know what a phone book is.
Right.
The yellow pages versus the white pages, they come separately.
Yeah, they come separately.
Right. Anyway, so summer of 76, I just dived right into collecting, data books to figure out how integrated circuits work and how the microprocessor worked.
That's fascinating to me, Daniel. You have an English background. I have a physics background. I studied electronics. You didn't study anything electronics. How did you end up in the electronics side of it? That is fascinating to me.
Well, I was always really good at math. And I was a math major at Reed, actually. I started out as a math major. And I did really well with calculus in high school. So I was in second year calculus at Reed. And I thought it was boring. It was second year calculus, in case you probably know, Ravana, but it's matrix multiplication.
Yeah.
And eigenvectors.
My God.
Tensors, no, they weren't teaching us tensors, but it was about vectors and matrix multiplication. And the professor never gave me a clue about what that would be useful for. And so I lost interest. And it's ironic that now, as I study how AI works, it's about matrix multiplication.
It's all matrix.
That's what a GPU does. It does your matrix multiplications.
Yeah.
So anyway, I
Yeah,
didn't know
so
anything. I didn't know anything about integrated circuits, so I had a big learning curve.
how
Steve,
did you start a job in Apple garage? Tell me about garage days.
well, I couldn't fix. I mean, I was assembling and testing, so that was pretty easy. I didn't know how to use I didn't know how to follow a schematic or use an oscilloscope, but I had a good eye, and I could, if a board didn't work, I could just look at it really closely and see if there was a bent pin somewhere or a broken trace or something. But then we start. So 1977, that's when I graduated from Columbia, and I started work full time at Apple the same week. Again, just testing Apple. Now it's the Apple II, not the Apple I. And it turned out I was really good at fixing Apple IIs. Didn't have to know how to design it, but you could, I learned how to use a scope and tell what the signal was good or bad. And anyway, so I was just a self-taught engineer. But Woz and Jobs both went to a high school, Homestead High in Cupertino, where they had a great professor, Mr. McCollum, I think that was his name, who had an electronics lab class. So they were building circuits in junior high school.
Oh my God.
And Steve Jobs had a summer job in junior high doing something at Hewlett Packard. So he knew how chips worked. He wasn't really a hardware designer so much, but he was smart and he knew how things worked. So anyway, I later became, so my dream, I was really good at fixing Apple IIs. And then I got hired as the engineering technician on the Apple III project, which was the new computer that we were making. And that's really where I learned how electronics worked. And so then Apple went public at the end of 1980. And then Steve Jobs had a big fat checkbook to spend on money, on anything he wanted to spend money on. And they kicked him off the Lisa project because he was a little too bossy. And Jeff Raskin had this Macintosh project for a tiny, the Mac was it was supposed to be $1,000 computer that you could take to bed with you. And so Steve took over that project and funded it and started hiring people. And I got to be a co-designer of the project.
You're co-designer for Macintosh. Yeah, that is a fascinating, Danielle. Let me ask you, that calligraphy that you did, the class, played a very important role in the Macintosh, right? The calligraphy, the fonts, the new font. Apple II doesn't have fonts. I used to go there. I could not be able to afford Macintosh. So, but I used to go to the Macintosh, Apple computer store, and watch that. And that cursor language came in. That was a mouse and everything. That was the beginning of the cursive language, right?
Graphical user interface.
Yeah.
But Apple did not invent that. Xerox PARC invented that. And even if Steve hadn't taken calligraphy at Reed, Adobe is the company that created the PDF and the graphical page description language. That's what PDF is. And so it was obvious that we were going to use that. So the Macintosh was going to have programmable fonts anyway. It's just that it was expensive to do that because if in a graphical user interface, the screen takes up a lot of memory, a megabyte for the screen. And not on the Macintosh. The Macintosh was only 128 kilobytes. So the Mac was kind of low res, but the Xerox Alto, which is what we were trying to copy, that was 500 kilobytes just for the screen. And that was the original graphical user interface.
So Macintosh is a big runaway hit, right? A huge runaway hit. Macintosh is everywhere. It was a big hit it really made a revolution in the computer, personal computers.
Like many things, the Macintosh took a few years to be a big hit. I mean, it was very newsworthy when it came out, but it was expensive. And it was interesting, but it wasn't really usable as a business productivity tool right away. It took a couple of years for the laser writer to come out, and Adobe PostScript came out, and page description language. What do you call? What's the word I'm thinking of? Graphics, production graphics. What you see is what you get. So that was what made the Macintosh hugely successful.
Yeah, the Macintosh board you showed me last time in the backside, close to your. Can you show me? Do you have that Macintosh board that he showed you, Apple II board or something that you always carry with you in your house?
I don't have it sitting here. Here's what I do have. Here's what I'm working on right now. This is called the Replica One, and it is a functional equivalent of the Apple One. And me and a partner helped made this board. This is a Wi-Fi module here. So this is a board that plugs into the Apple One.
Yeah.
And we got it set up so that this Apple One is able to be a video terminal logged onto GPT. So it's the very first computer as a video terminal logging on to OpenAI, which is a great demo. People like it.
That's exciting.
It is exciting. I've been giving this demo for the whole past year.
Neat.
Revisiting history. So now let us talk about a little bit of personal life. After that, the Macintosh came in. That was a big hit. He became a rich guy. Steve Jobs became rich, very powerfully
Steve Jobs
rich.
became the rich guy.
A rich guy. So, what are the dynamics after that? Is a company when was the iPhone and all these things, the Apple iPod, all these things came, iPod and iPad, all these revolutions came after that. And one thing I noticed about you were you and him are very famous fan of quantum physics. Always, with Bill Gates, he was trying to teach Bill Gates quantum physics. Tell me about quantum physics and your interest and Bill Gates, Steve Jobs' interest in that. Always talking about in the sense.
Well, Steve knew about Richard Feynman, Caltech, and Steve had a tiny bedroom at his parents' house, and he had one bookshelf over the door, but he had the Feynman lectures on physics. That was his prized possession. I didn't find out about Feynman until many years later. I took physics at Reed. My big mistake, which I regret, is I was confused about the Greek alphabet in physics. You're always talking about rho, sigma, tau, all these Greek variables, and I used to get confused by the Greek variables, and so I didn't really do so well in physics. Anyway, Steve and I were mostly more interested in metaphysics, in consciousness, and I don't know, when I went to high school in New York, in the suburbs of New York, and we had LSD in 10th grade. It was the 60s.
Oh my God.
69, 70. I was a high school class of 72. So the cool kids were like the class of 69. That was the Woodstock generation. we were a little too young. I would have gone to Woodstock, but I didn't have a driver's license. I was only 15.
What about Susan? Susan, what do you do? Were you in the Woodstock?
But I'm
not
just
quite.
saying, the whole idea of psychedelics and what it does. I mean, that's the whole story of the Be Here Now. Tim Leary and Ram Dass were psychiatrists.
Yeah.
They were psychic researchers, psychology researchers. And once they got a hold of mushrooms in this 1966, I think, and they knew it was important for the understanding of consciousness. And that's why when LSD came along, Tim Leary just jumped on it and said, everybody try this. But by 1971, Tim Leary was in prison and the money ran out for Richard Alpert. And so he went to India with those little bottle of LSD from Sandoz, looking for holy men to give LSD to find out what they would say. Mm-hmm. That's the great story. That's the story of the Be Here Now book. Mm-hmm. And so so that was kind of the same trail that Steve and I were on. And in fact, I had some LSD with me. If I found a holy man, I was going to give it to him and say, tell us what's going on here. Anyway, but
have you met Ram Dass?
I've met him many times. Yeah.
So a question I'm having is, I'm wondering, and this is some from my own research and some of my own studies, all of that literature that you read when you were, the list you said that you referred to, the list that you have with Stephen, and you had this long list, you associated metaphysics with some of that reading. And now today, physics is coming really central stage. It's on the kitchen table anymore. Do you think metaphysics seem to be almost a reach, but not really? I feel like physics is what you were talking about in your early stages. Like metaphysics kind of was helping people along, but do you feel that there's a direct relationship to, I mean, there is, like, physics is everything. Do you think it's the early scriptures and books and writings were actually doing their best to describe physics?
Yes. Well, I just used the word metaphysics, but really it's the theory of consciousness. We don't even have a good theory of consciousness. For all of the great technical achievements man has made, we don't know how anesthesia works. If you know the work of Stuart Hameroff, I find that completely fascinating. Roger Penrose, Stuart Hameroff. Penrose is the guy, he's the Nobel Prize winner in physics, and he's the one who's saying that consciousness is not computable.
Yes.
And I don't know. The question is,
I feel that too.
The question that is still very, very relevant is, where is consciousness located? Is it even in your brain? And to go back to Neem Karoli Baba, okay, let me describe it this way. Autobiography of a Yogi, that was the second book we read. It is filled with miracle stories. All this long, every chapter is a different guru and all the miracle stories that they did. And so it's like, okay, is this real? Are these real stories? Or are they made up? And if they're real, how does it work? And Hameroff is a professional anesthesiologist, and he says, we don't know how anesthesia works. Have you heard that? We discussed this before. Yeah. There is no good theory of how anesthesia works. And furthermore, when somebody is anesthetized, you can have them hooked up to an EEG machine and the brain is still functioning. The brain does not stop. But there's some part of the brain that is getting turned off by anesthesia. And isn't that interesting?
Very.
Okay? It's very interesting. So,
Susan,
the nano microtubules in the ribosomes
Correct.
of the neurons. That's Hameroff's theory.
Susan,
Anyway,
that Yamaroff is the anesthesiologist in Phoenix, Arizona, and then the Roger Penrose is a physicist. They somehow combined them together, combined it together, like you and me. I'm in the physics, you're in the medical field. They together came up with this a new kind of a consciousness theory that is so microtubules that Daniel is talking about. In the consciousness emerges in that microtubules, and recently, and very
Within
strangely, that there is the proof came out. It's called super radiance. That they were talking about these neurons are coordinating each other and firing the base. That is
yes.
really there is a lot of new things coming up to
It's
validate
not
that
new at
theory.
all. That's the problem. Is none of it's new at all. Our learning might be new at all, but none of it's new at all. We all know how time is. It's now, 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 now. So what Daniel was experiencing back in 74 and what every scientist and physiologist physicist that you speak about on your show, where a billion years ago they came up with this amazing mathematics and science, is relevant today exactly the same as it was back then, only more so today, because like you just described, they just came up with this new thing of microtubules. Baloney, it's been there all along. So I love physics. It's truly the answer to everything. And I love the early pioneers like you, Daniel, and when you were in India searching for truths, and really I love the ancient descriptions of physics that we understand it today.
Yeah. So I'll just continue my conclusion about, so after Steve passed away, it was kind of a surprise. I think it was a surprise to Steve. Steve has said this, that he thought the doctors were going to find a way to keep him alive. Anyway, what happened in the years following, I thought, well, I better collect all these books and put them all in one place, because they were scattered all over my house. And so now I have a Steve Jobs bookshelf with 100 books. And as I think about, and we're talking 24 different gurus from the 70s who were all pretty well known in the media. All these names, and they are all dead now, all of them. So it's time to look back. And as I thought about Neem Karoli Baba, he's really kind of in many ways, he's the best, because he lived up until 1974. And he was not, you wouldn't call him a healer like some gurus who lay hands on you and then you're magically healed. But he was a healer in the sense that he was very clairvoyant. And the experience, there's 10 books about Neem Karoli Baba. Now, there's still new ones are being written. And in fact, Dr. Larry Brilliant, founder of Seva, he wrote a memoir just a couple years ago called Sometimes Brilliant, about his experiences as a devotee of Neem Karoli. And the thing that was a very common experience is when you went to go meet or greet Neem Karoli Baba, either for the first time or he already knew you, he would blurt out the question that was in your head, because he was clairvoyant in that way. He would somehow see what the thing that you were wanting to ask. He did that very consistently. And then I thought, well, that is healing. That's a type of psychic healing, because people who have bad thoughts think they're secret. And and here's this little man in a blanket who knows what you're thinking. Okay. Now, some politicians might come to mind, people who are criminals, people who do bad things in the world. It's a healing experience to be in the presence of someone who you feel can see your thoughts. And that is what Neem Karoli could do. And I realized that is actually a very high level type of healing.
What is your
And
yeah? Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
here's the last word that I'm going to say on this. So then now I'm like reading about Edgar Casey. He's the most famous clairvoyant American healer. And then when I had a talk show, I did 3 shows with Russell Tarr.
Oh
who's
yeah,
one
I
of the world
attended him. I met him actually.
remote viewing. And what category? Well, remote viewing is in the category of clairvoyance.
Is he still
It's the same
is he
thing.
still around, Danielle? Russell Taggart?
He's still in Palo Alto. I don't see him around town much anymore, but
Yeah, I love to
would
interview
you
him.
like
Yeah,
would you like to interview
yeah,
him? I'll
please.
recommend
Yeah,
him.
I met him actually.
But
I love to interview him. Yes.
anyway, the reason Russell Targ is so famous
Yeah.
is because he was a scientist studying remote viewing, and the CIA paid him
Correct.
for decades to do many, many, many studies on remote viewing. And he basically proved that it is a phenomenon that is not chance. And any person who wants to focus on it can develop it
Yeah.
as a skill. And so I thought, well, if anyone can do that, more people should do it.
Yeah.
Because if more people were clairvoyant, the world would be better.
Yeah.
That's just my conclusion.
Absolutely.
But my assessment of that is that more people should do a lot of things that they don't do. And so what we focus on is what we get. That is a principle of physics. And so clairvoyancy and remote viewing and or washing your clothes, you have to concentrate on it to do it. And I think is he frozen for you too? Is Daniel frozen for you, Ramana?
Yeah, Daniel Frozen. Yeah.
But this whole clairvoyancy and any of those special traits, I believe, we all do have the ability. It's a matter of
Yeah.
focusing on it and using it and doing it as a workout. Like these people who can do it, it's because they've been doing it forever. Like it's not a random thought. They practice it literally all day, every day for years to be able to do that. Whoops, I think we lost him. We lost him, Ramana. Oh, I can't hear you now.
He's
I
coming.
can't hear
He's
you.
coming back.
Oh, there you are. I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, just I put a microphone. Yeah, he's coming.
Oh, okay. Anyway, fascinating.
Hold on.
Stand by, team. Technical difficulties.
Yeah.
I wish I could learn by osmosis, like I would like to just put my head close to his and download all of those books into my mind.
You are reading a big book reader, right?
I do. I love to read.
Yeah, he's very good. Daniel loves reading books. I'm a no.
I was
First
having
grade.
another thought. I was having another thought while he was, what an amazing life and I think
I
you and I talk about
don't you think you should ask question about what about the death he thought about Steve Jobs? And they're friends with Bill Gates also. Should ask that question. A little bit.
Well, that's
about
up to
that.
you. You ask that question. We're alive still.
Yeah,
You
we're
ask
alive.
the question.
No. But
What I was thinking about, and this is just because we've been talking about this other topic, and that is, I think, and you and I talk about frequency and vibration quite a bit. And I'm curious, here I am in my life and my trajectory and what I've done and what I've studied and where I've come. And I wasn't exposed to all of that literature. And I would have loved it. I mean, I would have devoured it. And I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, what are the numbers on the planet? Frequency match, right? So if these people have studied a certain body of knowledge and they're all at that vibration, at that frequency, how do we find them? That was a question I had for him.
I grew up in India, so some exposure there for those kind of religious and philosophical ideas. Yeah, Daniel is back, and let me add him. Okay,
Hey,
Daniel.
hey.
He invented technology. He needs to get a different kind of computers. You are the birth of a computers here in Silicon Valley. We're having a problem. This is called cognitive load, Daniel. It is a lot of pressure, including me today. I was complaining, and even Susan is complaining about today about the cognitive load of computers.
Oh, yeah. I had a few difficulties, but that's okay.
Yeah, let me ask you. She wants to ask something different. Let her ask
That's
you. But
okay. That's okay.
But I wanted to ask you about your Bill, Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates, and your relationship with the Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, and you. How does it? How does it? Bill Gates is a very materialistic way he thought about life. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs is very spiritual kind of a. Both of you and Steve Jobs are very different kind of a life lens you have. What do you think that is, and how does it manifest into your business?
Well, I think both Jobs and Gates were very lucky to be at exactly that moment in time
Yeah.
when the first computers were going to happen. When the Apple One came out, there were lots of other computers.
Yeah.
Um, and then when the Apple II came out, there were even more other computers. There were lots of competitors. What I've learned is that success for a company, like most companies, don't succeed. There are many stages where you could fail as a company, and many companies do fail. Apple could have easily failed in the late 90s. It
Mm.
was very close to running out of money, and they were going to sell it to Sun or sell it to some other company. Anyway,
What is the Bill Gates? Any relationship with the Bill Gates, and you all have? Was he involved during your time, or came in the latter stages at the Apple?
well, he was the same age as Steve and I. I met Bill Gates once before he was famous. He was, at a computer conference, hanging out in the lobby, just chatting. Nice guy, but he was ruthless in business.
Mm.
Um, but then the good story about Bill Gates. Remember when Bill Gates used to be the Darth Vader of technology, right? Because people love to hate Microsoft, but I think Melinda, his wife, gets a lot of credit for making him a philanthropist.